Have you ever noticed something strange about how we talk about generations? We constantly analyze millennials. We obsess over Gen Z like they're some brand new experiment in human behavior. And of course, the baby boomers are always part of the conversation. But there's one generation that somehow slips through the cracks. Generation X. Born roughly between 1965 and 1980, they sit quietly between two loud generations. They're often the coworkers who just get things done without talking about it. They're the parents who seem calm, sometimes distant, but strangely capable. And interestingly enough, they helped build the digital world we live in today, yet they're the least obsessed with showing their lives online. Psychologically speaking, Gen X may be one of the most misunderstood generations alive. To understand them, you have to go back in time. Imagine it's the late 1970s. You're about 8 years old, and the school day is over. But when you walk through your front door, no one is there. Both of your parents are still at work. There are no smartphones, no video doorbells, no way for anyone to check where you are. You unlock the door yourself, grab something from the fridge, and sit alone at the kitchen table doing homework while waiting for the evening to arrive. For millions of kids growing up during that time, this wasn't unusual. Researchers later found that by the early 1980s, millions of children were regularly home alone after school. These kids became known as latchkey kids, and that experience shaped their psychology in powerful ways. When you spend so much time handling things alone, you learn independence very early. You learn that problems are yours to solve. But it also teaches something deeper. It teaches you that you can't always rely on someone else to step in. That early independence created a mindset psychologists sometimes describe as a high-responsibility environment. Actions had immediate consequences. If you made a mistake, there was no long discussion about feelings or long explanations. The rules were simple. You crossed the line and you dealt with the outcome. Because of this environment, many Gen X adults developed a habit of mentally thinking ahead. They often anticipate problems before they happen. To younger generations, this can sometimes look like pessimism, but to Gen X, it's simply preparation. And their childhood didn't just shape how they think about responsibility, it also shaped how they view stability. Growing up in the 1970s and 1980s, they watched divorce rates rise dramatically. They watched companies lay off workers who had been loyal employees for decades. The message they heard growing up was simple: work hard, follow the rules, everything will work out. But reality told a different story. Rules changed. Careers disappeared overnight. Security wasn't guaranteed. So Gen X developed a mindset that psychologists sometimes call defensive realism. They hope things will go well, but deep down, they prepare for things to go wrong. That's one reason many of them keep a certain emotional distance from the world. You'll notice it especially when it comes to social media. While younger generations share nearly every moment of their lives online, many Gen Xers feel uncomfortable doing that. For them, privacy wasn't a feature, it was simply normal life. If something embarrassing happened when they were teenagers, maybe a few friends knew about it, and that was it. There was no camera recording every mistake. So broadcasting personal moments to strangers online feels unnatural to many of them. Instead, Gen X developed another psychological tool: irony. Humor became a kind of emotional shield. Rather than openly expressing vulnerability, they often joke about things or keep conversations light. Part of this attitude came from growing up during uncertain times. The Cold War dominated headlines. Schools practiced nuclear attack drills. Adults talked about catastrophic events as if they were ordinary possibilities. When you grow up hearing about world-ending threats while being told everything is fine, you develop a unique way of coping. You learn to stay calm but slightly skeptical. Despite all of this, Gen X built a reputation for something very specific: quiet competence. Many of them started working at a young age. Paper routes in the early morning, bagging groceries at local stores, running cash registers where they had to calculate change manually. These weren't glamorous jobs, but they introduced teenagers to responsibility earlier than many young people experience today. And that early exposure to work created a practical mindset. Gen X never fully trusted corporations to protect them. They saw too many layoffs and economic shifts. So instead of loyalty to companies, they focused on loyalty to their own skills. Their thinking was simple. You might not control whether a company survives, but you can control how valuable you are. Another interesting paradox defines Gen X psychology. They are deeply independent, yet they're also quietly supportive of others. They rarely ask for help themselves. After all, they've been solving problems on their own since childhood. But if someone else needs help, they often step in without hesitation. No announcement, no social media post, just quiet support. This behavior comes from the friendships they built growing up. When parents weren't always around, kids relied on each other. Those bonds created strong loyalty among peers. Authority is another area where Gen X developed a unique perspective. They respect competence, not titles. If someone truly knows what they're doing, Gen X will follow their leadership without question. But if someone is in charge simply because of their position, Gen X tends to be skeptical. After all, they grew up during political scandals, economic uncertainty, and institutional mistakes. They saw authority figures make very public errors, and that experience taught them to judge people based on ability rather than status. Economically, Generation X also faced significant challenges. Many entered the workforce during periods of recession. Later in life, they experienced events like the 2008 financial crisis, which reshaped entire industries. As a result, many Gen X adults prefer having multiple sources of income. Not necessarily because they are natural entrepreneurs, but because they've learned that stability can disappear quickly. Psychologists also notice another pattern among Gen X individuals. They are extremely capable during crises. When things go wrong, they tend to stay calm and figure things out. However, that strength sometimes comes with a downside. Many of them struggle to ask for support during difficult moments. Even when help is available, reaching out can feel uncomfortable. That habit traces back to childhood independence. Before the internet existed, solving problems required effort. If Gen X needed information, they often had to search through libraries, flipping through index cards and book catalogs. Finding answers required patience, and that effort created something psychologists call deep learning. When knowledge takes time to obtain, it tends to stick in memory longer. They also learned practical skills along the way. If a bicycle chain broke, you fixed it. If a television flickered, you tried to figure out why. Trial and error wasn't frustrating, it was simply how things worked. Today, many Gen X parents look at the world their children are growing up in and notice how different it is. Kids are monitored constantly. Phones track locations. Social media records daily life. In some ways, Gen X parents gave their children the attention they themselves rarely had, but sometimes they worry that modern life leaves less room for independence. Because in Gen X worldview, being visible often means being vulnerable. And perhaps that's the most fascinating thing about this generation. They grew up exactly at the moment when the world was changing. The analog world was fading. The digital world was beginning. Generation X became the bridge between those two eras, and bridges rarely get much recognition. They simply carry the weight, connecting one side to another, quietly doing their job. Maybe that's why Gen X rarely demands attention. They don't need applause. They're used to doing the work, whether anyone notices or not.